the narrative, the messaging from the club concerning manager David Moyes has changed in the last 2 days. And I think it's absolutely impossible that David Moyes wouldn't have noticed. Gio made a great point in the video yesterday, which was, he said, for somebody, and he's talking about David Moyes here, for somebody that apparently doesn't like social media, doesn't like the press, he sure does an awful lot of interviews. And Gio was absolutely right. He does a lot of these podcasts. He did one, a diary with the CEO, which was yesterday or day before yesterday, when he revealed that he'd passed up the opportunity to sign Julian Alvarez because, you know, Mikel Antonio was at West Ham and that was just fine. He also did a separate one, I think it was with Jake Humphries as well, sat down. These are long interviews, you know, for an hour and a half or something like that. Did another one with Graham Hunter. Good interview. Actually, I think they're quite good. I think I probably should say this about David Moyes. He's very candid. I think he's very honest, and I think those are really good qualities. Unfortunately, he doesn't know when to. It's weird. He doesn't know in those interviews. Doesn't know when to stop being honest because he sort of stitches himself up. Really, yeah. You get him in a press conference, he just lies constantly. But anyway. Gio's point was right. He does a lot of these things, and if he does a lot of these things, there's no way he doesn't come into contact with people that are involved in social media, that have got their ear to the ground, that are aware of the latest stories and the latest rumours. My elongated point being that David Moyes will know that he's in trouble, but he will know when the board are backing him publicly. He will have heard the rumours that he had 3 games left. And he'll certainly know the most recent one. And the most recent one, I'll probably publish this video. I'm recording this video on Tuesday. I'll probably publish it Wednesday morning. The most recent one, as of Tuesday, is that David Moyes has the West Ham manager's job on a game-by-game basis. So, and the way it was phrased was very interesting. So he can win against Everton, but if he loses to Newcastle, he's gone. Now, when managers are given a 1-year rolling contract, they basically have a year. It seems now, and the club seem happy to leak the information, that David Moyes has a game left. And even if he wins that, he has another game. And it would appear that this would go on until... I'm just reading between the lines here. Once you have that information, you have to really try and sort of figure out the rest for yourself. I'd imagine that would go on until we were in a position of comfort in the league. Let's put it that way. But what I do find interesting about this is, armed with that information, and if you agree and you concede that that's the case and David Moyes knows it, or at least David Moyes has heard those rumours, how does he act? Because certainly I found it hard to believe in recent times that he had 3 games left, 4 games left. But what I have believed is that David Moyes thought he had a long time. So everything we've seen from David Moyes so far has been of a man who thought he had the luxury of time. That's changed. The narrative's changed, the messaging's changed, and now he's going to know he has 1 game left. So we've seen how David Moyes reacts when he feels he's got time, when he feels that the backing of the board's on his side and there's patience there. How's he going to react when he knows he has 1 game left? When it is thingy or bust. When it comes down to 1 game, doesn't it? You know, this is it. And it might just be, I mean, he probably wouldn't make this case, but it might just be the most important game of David Moyes' career. The game against Everton, the upcoming game against Everton. El Sacico, I think they're calling it, or something like that. Might have it slightly wrong, but you get the gist. But basically, either David Moyes or Frank Lampard might get the sack. Maybe both of them. Imagine that. Imagine it's a draw and both get the sack. Anyway, it's a massively important game for him. And, I mean, you look at his position at West Ham, he will not get another opportunity like this again. I'm not saying West Ham was his dream club. I think that was Manchester United. But once that opportunity had passed him by, West Ham was his dream club because he had he's a project manager. He wants to do a project. What he did at Everton, he loved. He always refers back to Everton. He wants to be judged on Everton. West Ham was Everton on steroids. He basically had the backing that he's had at Everton, but he's had far more. When I say backing, I mean the trust of the board, and they've they've believed in him, and you've seen that recently. But he's had, on the steroids bit, is the amount of financial backing he's had. There's no way at Everton they were up on the top 2 or 3 spenders in Europe during the season. Far from it. He had to cut his cloth. He's been allowed to spend big at West Ham, and for that reason, this has been his dream job in many respects. And with that in mind, I would argue that it probably is the biggest game of his career, because if he loses this one, it's all over it. He might get firefighting jobs in the future, but he won't get another job like this. So it's going to be interesting to see how he lines up. Before I go into detail on that, this video is sponsored by the OneFootball app, which you can download by clicking the link underneath this screen. The OneFootball app is your one-stop shop for all your footballing needs, because you can tailor it to your own specifications. You don't want to hear about Arsenal, you don't want to hear about Manchester United, you don't want to hear about all that other stuff, all that peripheral stuff and background noise. You just want to hear about West Ham. That's no problem, because when you download it to your phone, you instruct it. You say to it, I support West Ham, you click the button, and what it does, it goes around all the websites and all the newspapers, gathers all the West Ham news and delivers them to your phone, so you don't have to go searching for it. The best thing about it is it's free. All I'd ask you to do is maybe please use the link below to download it, so they know you've come from Hammers Chat. So back to David Moyes. We were looking through some stats when myself and Gio were doing our Patreon player ratings, which we do after every game. We do a little video the morning after, basically. Gio's great with his stats, loves his stats. So we started looking. I'll often ask a question. Gio will that's him looking on the computer. He's not playing the piano. He's looking on the computer, and he looked, and he had a look at. I'll often ask a question. He'll look at some stats, and he'll come back with stuff. He had a look at Thomas Souček's stats. Thomas Souček in that game against Wolves made 8 passes again. This is not the first time this season he's made 8 passes. This is not the first time in the last calendar month he's made 8 passes, by the way. That's unacceptable. That's our central midfielder. He played for an hour in the game. It wasn't just that. I mean, I guess it's no surprise, because we did a video relatively recently in the month of January talking about him only making 8 passes in a game. However, as unsurprised as that might have been, there's always been the feeling there, well, you know what, Moyes picks him because he does the other stuff. He does the tackling and the clearances and interceptions and all that. During that game against Wolves, he made no tackles. I don't know how David Moyes is going to appraise this, but it is very interesting to try and figure out how he is going to put that knowledge, and he'll have that knowledge. They're not exclusive stats. He'll have all the statistics. How is he going to put that and factor that in to a team where he has to save his job? What, as I mentioned, I would argue is possibly the most important game of his career. Because he's tried that and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. There's no evidence to suggest in recent times that putting Thomas Souček in there wins you games. It's not just that, by the way. I'm just using that as an example. You can pick your own way, be it Cresswell, Kehrer, not playing Said Benrahma, not including Flynn Downs, not playing 2 up front. Whatever your thing is, right? Whatever it is that when you look at West Ham, whether it's the individual player, or you think we're overly defensive, or what you think we are doing wrong, or what you think we're not doing right. Whatever that thing is, it'll be interesting to see if David Moyes puts any of that into action for this game. Because I think it would be a really weird thing to have this sort of last chance saloon. This game was final chance, where you know you're under pressure. Your friends have already probably told you that, you know, the stories ain't great. You've got 1 game left. I would like to think that David Sullivan has relayed that information to David Moyes, but you know what? I would understand if he hadn't, but I would like to think he had. The conversation wouldn't be an easy one, but they've had difficult conversations in the past. And I don't expect people that have earned as much money and have been as successful in their respective fields as David Sullivan and David Moyes to be afraid to have a difficult conversation. Look, you know, probably go along the lines of, you know, David, this is Sullivan speaking to David Moyes. I'm not going to pick the phone up again. I'm assuming it's face to face. And he'd say to him, David, Moyesy, I've really backed you as much as I can, and I've really tried to support you in the hope that the results will turn around. But we're in dire straits at the moment. The results are so bad, the club's in peril, real peril. We can't afford to go down. We've got a takeover, we've got a buyout pending, whatever the case may be. You know, it'd be a very professional conversation, not a personal one. With that in mind, mate, I can only guarantee you one more game, and we're going to need to win it. I would hope that Sullivan has articulated that to David Moyes. And after that information, I would then hope that David Moyes thinks, well, I'm going to do something different. I suspect, by the way, that he's going to think the answer to that is going to be to bring Kurt Zouma back into the team, play Kurt Zouma and Naif Gerd, and that might just do it. And by the way, it might. I think it might stop Everton scoring. But is it really enough? Is that really grasping the nettle? Is that being brave? Is that whole thing about, I always get it muddled up, going out on your sword, coming back on your shield. I forget it. And every time I say it and I forget it, and I've done it 3 or 4 times on this channel, someone always corrects me in the comments. It's coming back on your shield, or it's going out on your sword, throwing yourself on your sword. Anyway, I do this every time, and I do apologise. I get very, very confused. Someone corrects me, and I read it, and then the next time I do a video, I've forgotten it again. So I do apologise. You want to go out swinging, you know? You want to go out fighting, I think is what I'm really looking for here. And I don't think just sort of tweaking one centre-back is going to do it. You want him to do something major. You want him to change the composition of the midfield. You want him to change the formation. You want him to... If you're going out swinging, you're going out attacking. If we're going to go down, if I'm going to lose my job, you know what? I'm not going to do the last stuff that I've been doing that's got me into this predicament, that's put us in the bottom 3. I'm going to go attacking. I'm not saying you don't play Kurt Zouma. You do play Kurt Zouma and a Gerd at the back, but you actually go for it. You're not going to play a formation where, you know, or a strategy where we're backing off. You're not going to not leave anyone up when we defend in a corner. You know, you're going to think, actually, even if we're defending a corner, we're going to put someone on the halfway line, we're going to break quickly. Go out having a go. I think this is really interesting. I do think it's an intriguing set of possibilities are there. I don't think he'll do it. I don't even think it's about bravery. In many respects, when he said he doesn't fear being sacked in the Diary of a CEO podcast, I believe him. I don't think it's fear. It's just stubbornness, or, you know, absolute belief in his method. Well, that is stubborn, isn't it? Absolute belief in something that you're doing and not changing is stubbornness. And that stubbornness is great if it's working, right? I mean, that's great. You've got absolute validation there that what you're doing is the correct thing. If what you're doing is sticking to your plan and your method, and it's failing week after week after week, that's just sort of bad stubbornness, isn't it? And anyway, I'd be interested to see what he does. Be very, very interested to see what he does. I would ask for your comments on it, but I know you're going to leave them there anyway. I suspect I know what a lot of you are going to think, and I know a lot of you are probably going to say, "Oh, David Moyes is just going to do much the same thing." But I also suspect a lot of you watching this, you'd do something different. I think if it was you, and it was your last chance to keep your job or whatever it was, you'd do everything you possibly could, leave no stone unturned. And actually, to use that metaphor analogy, I don't think David Moyes does leave no stone unturned. I don't. I think he likes the stones exactly where they are. I think he knows. I think he compartmentalises that. I don't think he wants to know Thomas Souček's stats against Wolves. I don't think he wants to just turn stones over and discover new things. I think he's really, really happy where he is. Ultimately, it may well cost him his job. Will be a really, really interesting one, though, because I think I've given enough spoilers anyway, you know, even ahead of the review that myself and Gio will do on Thursday over on the main channel. You know, a 0-0 draw is going to be a weird one, and I just mean in terms of what that would mean for his future. But the messaging is out there now. Even if he manages a stay of execution against Everton, he would then have to win against Newcastle. And I think we all understand that that's probably unlikely, looking at how Newcastle are playing. And with that in mind, it just begs the question, why don't they just get rid of him now? They seem to be tied. I've already mentioned this, tying themselves up in knots about this tribute to David Gold. I think they're making it more awkward for themselves by insisting that he has to be part of it. I know I repeat myself and I said it in yesterday's video. But you know what I mean? That doesn't even become a part of it if they were to get rid of him sort of now. Tuesday, Wednesday, get rid of him now. It's not even a factor. It really isn't. Anyway, I think it's an unnecessary consideration from him. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think. I think I know what you think, but I'll be interested to read it anyway.